Hi, this is Ryan Otley. I'm artist of Invincible. You are drawing. No, you are drawing. I'm drawing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're watching 9.9 Comics with these two guys. Yeah. Who's behind the camera?
For once.
Yeah, Chris. There you go. Bye.
Hi, welcome to 9.9 Comics with Chris and Kyle.
I am Kyle!
And I'm Chris, and today we'll be talking about comics getting released 5/16/2018.
And it's episode 50!
And it is episode 50.
It's episode 50, guys. We've been doing this for 50 episodes.
Stay tuned. At some point during the show, we will be revealing the code word.
Code word that I told you guys about on the group.
And the group chat, the code word, if you're not in the group chat but you watch the show, the code word is to bring into the store that Wednesday, 5/16/2018, and say it to Matt or one of us if we're here, and we'll get you entered into the raffle to win a prize, and we'll get into that when we give you the code word.
Right, well, we can just say now, the prize is going to be a $25 gift certificate to 9.9 Comics. So therefore, we were thinking about making it just a comic, but we don't want to have to, because it could be a comic that whoever wins they're not a big fan of, so we thought it'd be better if we just give you free range, a $25 free range about the store and get what you want.
So, it's a pretty good deal. I wish I could win, but I can't.
Yeah, right. Employees no access.
Alright, but moving on into things. To start things off, we're going to start with Marvel Comics with Infinity Countdown Daredevil #1. So this is continuing the Infinity Countdown comic line, where I guess the Infinity Stones are popping into, re-emerging into the universe again. This one featuring Daredevil and Hell's Kitchen and the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone has re-emerged into the universe in the middle of New York underworld and in the most unlikely of hands. Can even Daredevil keep Hell's Kitchen from falling under the influence of an Infinity Stone's immense power? So, these have been doing pretty well. All of them. And there is a lot of them, which is probably
You about to ash away, Chris? You about to ash away? You're dying there. Talking about the Infinity Stone, I couldn't help.
Moving on from there, we have another one that's doing pretty well. There's a lot of them, though. Hunt for Wolverine, Claws of a Killer #1 of 4. So this is another Hunt for Wolverine comic. Summary of this one: keep your friends dead, but your enemies deader. That sounds horrifying. As word spreads that Wolverine may have returned from the grave, a handful of his greatest adversaries come together to track him down and put him back there. But the brutal and horrific nightmare that Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, and Doc can uncover could lead to even more death than even these vicious killers can handle. Parental advisory. That's always a good sign. And it's already backorder, not in stocked on Diamond. So this is probably, definitely one you should pick up. Plus, I mean, Sabretooth, Doc, and Lady Deathstrike.
With a parental advisory. So it's tons of shredding.
Tons of shredding. All the metal claws.
Correct.
Next one is sort of a ending, I don't know. It's Mighty Thor: Gates of Valhalla #1. It's an epilogue for Jane Foster's Mighty Thor, basically. So this is the last goodbye. The death of the mighty Thor has come and gone, but Jane Foster's power to inspire lives on, even in the far future. Don't miss the tribute to Jason Eric's epic tale of Thor and the mighty hammer Mjolnir, drawn by rising star Jen Bartel. And with or without a Thor, the War of Realms continues. As Malekith's power grows, the realms will fall, and who is left to stop him? Eisner Award-winning artist Ramon Perez kicks off the next stage of Jason Aaron's ongoing saga, rated T for teen.
So this is sort of like Marvel's version of Death of a Friend, where they kind of bookend Superman's death, and here they're bookending Thor's death, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up, another Marvel comic. Marvel's got a lot of hitters coming out this week. Not super, like, no-brainer deals, but a lot of important comics.
Very respectable comics.
Yeah, this one, X-Men Wedding Special #1. So this is kind of cool. It's Colossus and Kitty Pryde. And it's Chris Claremont returning to the X-Men, so that's kind of a big deal.
Gotta love Chris Claremont.
One of the biggest milestone events in X-Men history is almost here. Kitty Pryde and Colossus are finally about to tie the knot, but what's a wedding without the respective bachelor and bachelorette parties? Join Mark Guggenheim and Kelly Thompson for 2 parties that can only be celebrated Marvel style. All this, plus a Kitty and Colossus story by legendary X-Men scribe Chris Claremont. Rated T+. Why don't they just put parental advisor?
I don't know. Older than a teenager. You mean an adult.
So, moving on from there, another comic out of Marvel.
What?
We have Quicksilver, No Surrender, #1 of 5. This is pretty cool. Quicksilver books are always fun. Gotta love Magneto's kids. Spoiler alert. Racing out of the pages of Avengers No Surrender, Quicksilver's super speed and abrasive personality have always isolated him, but he's never been truly alone, until now. Trapped beyond the perception of friends, family, and allies, Quicksilver wages a one-man guerrilla war against a monster that he's not even sure is real, to save a world he may never be a part of again. Saladin Ahmed from Black Bolt and Eric Nguyen from Old Man Logan team up to bring you a psychedelic survival thriller unlike anything you've ever seen before. So that looks pretty fun. A Quicksilver psychedelic book. I like it. That and Quicksilver is one of the few X-Men characters that I've always enjoyed. Moving on from Marvel, we're going to get into DC. This is one of the comics I'm most excited for this week.
Right, it's power team behind it.
And it is a huge team behind it. And it's DC Comics' New Challengers #1 of 6. Yes, it is another Metal spin-off. That being said, have they really disappointed though? This one is writer Scott Snyder with Aaron Gillespie and art done by Andy Kubert and Klaus Janson.
What?
So Challengers Mountain has returned to the DC universe and chosen a new team of explorers. 5 misfit strangers are given a second chance at life, but only if they obey the orders of the mysterious professor and execute deadly missions in the most unexplored corners of the multiverse. And if the new challengers of the unknown fail, it will be more than just their own lives that hang in the balance. So,
I was telling Chris it reminds me a lot of Suicide Squad.
Right?
It's really odd for a publisher to make a spin-off of their own comic.
Like, oh, Suicide Squad? This is Meet the Challengers. Suicide Squad is for Earth, Challenges are for everywhere.
Yes. Of the multiverse. Defenders of the multiverse.
Also out of DC Comics this week, we have Justice League No Justice, #2 of 4, with Scott Snyder and various other writers, and art by Francis Manapul and Marcus Toe. The teams arrive at Brainiac's homeworld, blah blah blah. So
it's the same synopsis as
we talked about it, and it's great.
It's got as much hype, basically, not as much pre-hype, but as much current hype as Metal did when it was released.
Because it is really
it's
kind of a continuation.
Actually, it is a continuation of Metal. You're not wrong.
Plus a lot of hype for the new Ultraviolet Lantern in it.
Oh yeah.
So make sure to be picking these up. There's a new Green Lantern color spectrum getting released in.
And who becomes
it's Jon Stewart.
Yes, God, I love Jon Stewart. Favorite Lantern. He deserves every bit of that light.
Wrapping things up for DC Comics, we have the Superman special #1. Summary for this: The Promise. Superman's world is about to change in a big way. Yeah, it's getting a new writer. But before it does, the Man of Steel has some unfinished business to attend to on Dinosaur Island. Superman and a forgotten soldier of the past take one last trip together into the abyss of tomorrow as Captain Storm now stands face to face with the world of today. This extra-sized special also features stories by writers Mark Russell and Ian Flynn, with art by Care Andrews and Brian Hitch. So that's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm. And now I think it's actually a pretty good time to give away our code word, which technically is not a code word. It is. And of course, I know there are some people who aren't able to pull this off, so your best attempt is good enough for us. We appreciate it. All right, time to get into the independent publishers. With we're gonna start out with Dark Horse Comics. This is actually it's another video game based comic. It is World of Tanks Citadel #1 of 5. And for those of you who aren't familiar with World of Tanks, it is one of the biggest independent games to ever have been released, with a worldwide popularity and even people making money playing it.
And it's pretty much the best tank fighting simulation game ever created.
It was free, and people are playing it right now religiously, and they have been ever since it came out, which was years ago. I remember, I think it came out for the Xbox 360.
I mean, it did so well that they released World of Ships and stuff, World of Planes.
Right. It created a genre almost.
Yeah.
So, the Eastern Front, 1943, as the cataclysmic battle of Kursk looms large. Captain Piotr Piotrowicz and his driver Natalia Ginger Pulkova prepare their unit for action, equipped with the worst tanks in the Russian inventory. On the opposite side, German tankers Karl Kraft and Freddy Stalder brace for the onslaught, well aware that the failure here will put their Soviet enemy on the road to Berlin. Garth Ennis and PJ Holden present a second action-packed story of armored warfare, inspired by the phenomenally popular game World of Tanks. So that's actually even
It's a World War II book.
It's a World War II game, and actually it's a really pivotal. It takes place. It's a pivotal moment in history, because when Russia made it to Berlin, was basically the end of World War II.
Russia and the U.S. made it pretty much at the same time, and basically had it encircled. So this is, like you say, important fight.
It's an important historical event, and it's also for an important game. You don't want to miss out on that, and these will fly off the shelf pretty fast. And
Karl Kraft, creator of Kraft Macaroni.
World of Tank fans are diehard, so you buy this, hold on to it, and I guarantee you in the future someone will be like, "Oh, I remember playing that game, I loved it. How much you want for that?" Moving on, we are getting into Image Comics with the release of Dead Hand #2, and we're showing you this for the cover B version, as you can see, with the assassin with the silencer with the
more
Russian
Cold,
star.
More Russian stuff. Cold War Russia.
Right. Cold War Relics Part 2. Mountain View, I almost said do, but that's French. I'm not going to put that here. Mountain View's secrets continue to unspool, even as Carter and Renee fight to protect Roger from the outside world, with a deadly consequences. So, Cold War stuff, man.
So first we start off with World War II. Now we're getting into
mostly,
Cold War right afterwards.
Mostly we're interested in this cover.
Yeah, the cover is pretty nice.
And then moving on, we have Crude #2. Crude lived up to the hype. People loved it. We of course have #2 coming out, and we'll have a little bit of synopsis on this one. The refinery city of Blackstone is the new Russian frontier, stinking of oil but offering money and sexual freedom to those brave enough to live there. Pyotr Petrovich isn't that the same guy from World of Tanks? Is that the same guy from World of Tanks? That's the same name for. That's the same. That's almost the same name.
No, it's not quite, but
okay.
It's the same first name.
Anyway, has to come for revenge to hunt his son's killer, but what he finds is the most brutal fight of his life. So just in case you haven't caught a #1, that's what the story is about, and it's done by Steve Orlando, a pretty good writer. And then moving on from there, we have an interesting #1 coming out of Image. It reminds me sort of like a niche anime, sort of like a cooking anime or basketball anime. So for those who are into those niche style comics, this is really big for them. Series premiere With a strange walled city, kind of sounds like Attack on Titan. An unlicensed chef discovers a mystery that threatens to end it all. Join Joseph Keatinge from Glory and Shudder and Wook Jin Clark from Adventure Time: The Flip Side on this culinary epic adventure, Flavor, where chefs are the ultimate celebrity and food is most valued commodity. A high-stakes competition of Hunger Games collides with the lush, Miyazaki-esque world building in this delectable new ongoing series featuring culinary consulting and bonus content by Ali Bouzari, renowned food scientist and author of the IACP award-winning cookbook Ingredient, unveiling the essential elements of food. So, I mean, the word Miyazaki has...
where it's actually dealing with food and cooking battles. To the death.
To the death.
No, I don't.
So, but the art looks pretty interesting, and of course, with the word Miyazaki-esque, you can't really go wrong with that.
It looks kind of like there's a dog cooking in the background.
I think that's just a man's... Oh, no. Actually, yeah, it looks like a dog.
Cooking in the background.
Our picture's in as high def as what you have right here.
It is on back order stocked, so it's almost out.
Right.
But...
yeah. And then after that is one. if this show were primarily up to me, this would be the 9.9 no-brainer. Gideon Falls #3, because Gideon Falls is the best thing since sliced bread and Walking Dead.
Debatable.
Yeah, let's not get into this right now. we argue about everything all the time. So Gideon Falls #3. It is a book by Jeff Lemire. Who is currently doing Bloodshot. I can't remember what else he's doing, but I know for a fact he's doing Bloodshot, and his Bloodshot is, I would say it's the best it's ever been right now. So you don't want to miss Gideon Falls #3 when it comes, especially with the cliffhanger we were left with last month. I'm ready to find out what happens after that. Then, of course, we have Barrier #3 of 5. Barrier #1 and #2 came out last week. #1 you got with Free Comic Book Day, and you had to buy Barrier #2 in store when it came out that Wednesday. So don't miss issue 3, and it's really interesting how they're made. If no one's picked up one yet, they kind of read like a calendar. So not only I mistakenly said last episode that it was sort of like God Crusher #2. God Crusher #2, only the cover is sideways. Barrier, the entire book is sideways, so you read it like a calendar.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I haven't read mine yet. Cool.
And then that's it for Image. And then moving into Action Lab with their release of Ruin of Thieves, Brigands #1. A little bit on this one. The Myros comet passes overhead, setting the night ablaze, a spark to a tinderbox of political forces vying for its power. As the first flames of conflict begin to lick at their heels, our heroes, led by the famous Stellian Blackheart Dassault, find themselves on the smuggler's Isle of Rakik. And for all their efforts at keeping their heads low, Trouble seems to have a knack of bitening the noose around their necks. So that's a lot to throw out there with very little wording.
Bitening the noose around their necks?
Oh yeah, I did. Tightening the noose around the roof.
I kind of like biting better.
Yeah, me too. I thought they were
getting biting into the neck.
I was like, biting. I've never heard that word before. It sounds intense. Sorry.
I just wanted to double check. I liked it. I just wasn't sure if that's.
What I like it too, because I read these like beforehand, and like I read biting the first time. I'm like, biting. Yes, bite. Me biting my shoes. So that's a really interesting story, and I kind of like how they kind of lay out a lot out there, but they don't tell you too much. So you have to read to find out, guys. But it sounds like a pretty interesting one. And then coming out of Aftershock, this one sounds really good, guys. Walk Through Hell #1. It kind of has a regression-esque kind of vibe to it, but not in different dimension style, but more of like a hellish demon style. So a little bit about this one. So these two FBI agents walk into a warehouse, starting out like a joke. Special Agents Shaw and McGregor handle the routine cases nowadays, which is just the way Shaw likes it. She's pushing 40, a borderline burnout. The ghastly memories of her last investigation still clinging like shadows, so she has PTSD of some kind. McGregor is younger, more dedicated, hanging on to some measure of idealism wherever the world might throw at him. So he's very optimistic. We have two clashing personalities. That's a good sign. When two fellow agents go missing inside a Long Beach warehouse, Shaw and McGregor are sent in to investigate to hopefully find similarities with each other and become friends. That's what I'm assuming. That's not in the actual thing. But what they find waiting is far from routine, as the local police have already discovered to their cost. Before the night is out, our heroes will encounter terror beyond their most appalling nightmares in a place where the night may never end at all. A new kind of horror story from modern America, written by Garth Ennis from Preacher,
The Boys,
and no, but for real, Preacher and Crossed. Those are really big comics, guys, and really big horror comics. Preacher more of a horror comedy, but Cross is definitely a straight up horror. And drawn by Goran Sudzuka from
Why the
Last Man, and Hellblazer.
Constantine, if you weren't aware.
Correct. Not Hellraiser, Hellblazer.
Still would be pretty cool either way, honestly.
Or Hellraiser wearing a blazer. Alright, with the end of Aftershock Comics, it only really leaves us with the 9.9 no-brainer! Kyle, me? So,
You're not the no-brainer.
I know I'm not the no-brainer, but that's not the point. Because the real no-brainer is Ether Copper Golems, #1 of 5. So, it's coming out of Dark Horse Comics. Really good publisher. They put out some really awesome stories, especially horror stories, which is what this one is. It is written by the ever-popular Matt Kindt, who is doing Exo Manowar run right now, and it's really killing. It's the best. It's I think I already said this for Bloodshot, but I think it's the best Exo Manowar's ever been. Only because I think it's modern, and I'm very biased.
Yeah, a lot of Valiant's comics are really good since they did their retcon.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So, from New York Times bestselling mind, MGMT creator Matt Kindt and the Black Hammer's David Rubin comes this fantasy adventure about a science-minded hero intent on keeping the balance between Earth and a magic world. Portals between Earth and the ether begin to crack open, unleashing devastating magical fury on our planet, and only adventurer Boone Diaz can seal the breaches. In order to put an end to this chaos, Boone recruits a powerful team of mystical beings, including a grumpy, spell-writing fairy and a bickering lavender gorilla. That's right, I said a lavender gorilla. I don't know what that looks like yet, but we will. And
I hope it's scratch and sniff.
And yeah, he smells like lavender. That'd be an expensive comic. And a bull-headed motorcycling spell hacker. Black Thieves heroes set off on a journey, taking the reader through the center of volcanoes, deserts full of living mummies and sphinxes, and a bizarre fairy forest in an effort to save both worlds from complete destruction. So
it's like a horror fantasy.
Yeah, horror fantasy kind of. I think it's more of a trip, like almost like a trippy horror fantasy. It's almost like a new genre, kind of piggybacking off of all the mystical comics that are coming out with wizards and such. But
like curse words.
Like curse words, but this is a little bit more serious than curse words. Curse words is slapstick.
Curse words can be pretty serious at times. Aside
from the overwhelming slapstick. And it's also a gem of the month. So if the signs were here, they're showing themselves. It is only a short run. It's a #1 of 5. So a lot of, I'd imagine they're going to be pretty content filled. Again, because I remember what was it? Eugenics was only a 3 run, and those were pretty long comics. Yeah, but there was so much in it. It was like going on an adventure.
I loved Eugenics 3.
Yeah, I bet you did. Person who never read Eugenics 3. Well, we spoiled it to him, so he knows what happens. But with that, actually, before we remember that this Wednesday, the 16th, we're having the John Crowther signing. So bring your Rochelle #1 if you haven't picked up your Rochelle #1, and bring it in to get signed. Take a selfie with him. Be like, hey, Met John Crowther. And yes, remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff. Press all the buttons.
And it's a triple threat this Wednesday. Come in, meet John Crowther, give the code word that we gave you earlier in the show to enter into the raffle. Bunch of big new comics coming out this week.
Big new.
So definitely the day to come into the store.
Right. It's gonna be a really good week. I mean, we say that all the time, but for real, it's gonna be a really good week. Especially thank you guys for sticking around for 50 episodes. And don't miss the raffle because $25 can get you a lot of comics. Especially
some of these variants that he has up on the wall for $25 can get you one or two of some nice variant covers.
Right.
Collectible variants and stuff. Mm-hmm. So definitely worth coming in.
There's even some comics that are kind of a little harder to find that if you look closely they're hiding from you.
There's an old 80s Shazam for $15.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There might not be when you guys get here. Shazam fan!
You have that issue already.
Oh, okay. Do I? I don't have issue 15.
No, I mean there's a $15.
Oh yeah, duh. I'm mixing numbers up. Anyway, have a good one, guys.
See you next time.